Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Jackie. I'm a recovering addict. And today I wanted to cover the topic of addiction, like the whole stigma that goes behind being an addict, and just dive into that topic a little bit. So I'm going to use examples from when I was using, and hopefully this won't trigger anybody, but I want to put this warning in here just in case when I do talk about my using times, I know that I'm more likely to trigger somebody then than when I'm not talking about that. So I want to throw that warning in there. Where to start? I feel like when you are a drug addict, especially if you become, like I did, an IV drug user, I feel like there's this really bad stigma that goes with that. And it even just like among the drug community and like the whole, I guess what I call like the underbelly of society, where you're regularly dealing with other criminals, other addicts, people that are just like you, breaking the law every day to get drug money. Yet if you're an IV user, I feel like you're at the very bottom of the barrel. Like even other users, other criminals look down on you like, like you are the worst of the worst. You're just a shitty ass person. You can't be trusted. I feel like I'm not in focus, which is true. I was a shitty ass person that couldn't be trusted. But addiction is kind of it's kind of like a tricky thing. How I can basically just explain it, how it played out for me. And it starts off kind of like a love, when you're falling in love with somebody and you just become completely, like, I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but it's definitely the right word with addiction. Like you become so obsessed with them. You want to spend all of your time together. You want to try everything together that you've never done. Except now you're going to do it with this substance. So now I've discovered that this makes me feel a certain way, and now I basically want to do everything that I would normally do, except now let's do it with the substance. I'm like on this whirlwind of an adventure, right? You're meeting all these new people. I'm going, from a place of not really knowing who I was as a person, what I wanted to be, where I wanted to go in my life. And now I have all these new friends and all these new substances to try, and the world is just opening up, or so it seems. And so that carries on for a while, or it did for me. And then by the time that I started to sort of notice, like, okay, everybody else seems like they're different, right? Everybody else seems like they just are having fun. And now it's not something I do for fun. This is like what I do. This is everything to me. This is like my full-time job, is maintaining my high. So other people are going to work when they're sleeping it off. They're doing all this other stuff, and in a way I become almost to be jealous of them, like they don't have what I have. I have like an obsession. It was almost like a switch was flipped on the minute I started using, and I didn't know that switch was in me, right? And so the thing is, I don't know how to flip the switch off. So the more years I go on using, that switch is just on, right? It's just on. I'm using. I want to use more. I have an insatiable appetite for drugs and alcohol that no matter how bad things get, I still want more. I don't know how to turn that switch off in me that's been turned on. And everybody else, it seems like, from my point of view, they have a switch, and it's like party on. They flip their switch on, they party, they hang out, they kick it for the weekend, they flip that motherfucker off, and they go right back to their regular scheduled activities, work, kids, family life. Whereas I have no way to flip mine off, and I'm just like, okay, like they go on about their way and I go about my way, but before too long, I'm no longer associating with regular people because I can't relate to them, right? Now I'm becoming very isolated. I'm becoming very manipulative. I'm becoming basically just an entirely different person altogether. And from the outside looking in, it would be very easy to be like, the drugs are your problem, the alcohol is your problem. Why don't you just stop? But the thing about addiction is it's the only disease out there that I've ever heard of that it tells you that you don't have a problem. It lies to you, and it doesn't lie to you like, like if you picture God talking to you or Satan talking to you. I always pictured like God on my one shoulder and Satan on my other shoulder, and you would think addiction would be obvious. It's like Satan on your shoulder telling you, do this, do that, do this. And I would almost prefer it that way because I could see that's fucking Satan right there. I don't, if I want to turn my life around, I just don't want to listen to him, right? I want to listen to this angel or God or this higher power on my right side. But the thing about how I struggled with addiction was, and I wasn't able to see this until I was sober, years sober, and looking back on it, was why I fell so long for so hard was because that little voice, yeah, it probably was Satan, but that little voice was inside my own head telling me all these lies, and it wasn't saying it in like an evil, conniving, voice that didn't sound like my own. That voice was my own voice, my own thoughts, my own inner thoughts were working against me. So basically, the way addiction worked for me is it it made me believe, it convinced me that I didn't have a problem, that I didn't have a disease, that I wasn't an addict, it just continued to tell me more lies, more lies, more lies, and it wasn't telling me in a way that I could tell the difference between a lie from the truth. It was telling me in my own voice, and it felt like it was coming from my own heart. When all evidence, you could have, basically there was evidence. I mean, there was so much evidence that I had a problem. You could back a bulldozer in and just dump out the fucking evidence. There was so much, court cases, just all the different things I got arrested for: DUIs, assaults, possession, fencing stolen goods, grand theft auto. I can't even tell you. All those would point to, you have a problem, right? And then let's not even consider all the emotional turmoil and all the bottoms that we see physically. All of, don't have a place, don't have a car. Basically, I'm surviving off of feeding and preying on other people on a regular basis. That is my job. Now I'm like preying on other people for my own survival. And I believe that if I don't have drugs, I feel like I'm gonna die. I go into withdrawal and that shit feels like fucking death. And then, like, I feel like it's all or nothing. I feel like I would give my own life every night. I would put my own life on the line if it meant I was going to get high at the end of it. So I'm willing to die every night if it means that I'm going to get high. I'm willing to die every night if it means I don't have to wake up sober. I'm willing to do anything it takes. And if I don't, I feel like I'm fucking dying. I feel like death. I'm going into withdrawals. I'm, feeling all this shit. And it's not just physically, it's psychologically. It is physically. I'm physically sick. I'm physically weak. I'm physically throwing up. I'm physically going through withdrawals. Psychologically, my mind is fucked up, and it's basically just like, You need to use. That's the only way to get past this. And so it felt like urgent. It felt urgent. I know that probably sounds so dramatic, right? How could that really be happening? And yet, doesn't does that not help explain some of my crazy ass behavior? Does that not help explain a lot of the crazy ass shit I did? And that's not an excuse. That's just saying, when all of my rational thought, like looking back on a lot of the shit I did, it just makes no sense. It's just like it's sad to think about. And then I got involved on a whole nother level as far as the intensity of how much I was using, how often I was using, which was all the time. Uh, and I would call people back home, like that I used to hang out with. So anyway, I'm calling these people from back home that were my best friends from when I lived, were some of my best friends from when I lived out here. And they're basically not answering the phone. I'm leaving messages. They're not calling back. I'm even reaching out and calling some of my family members, like just letting them know, hey, I'm done. I just need a ride to the rehab and I'm ready to end this all. I've got a ticket back home. And funny enough, nobody wanted to deal with me, and I can't blame them, because that's the level I let it get to, where people want to help you in the beginning, but that's another point I'm trying to get to is when you get so low and you are an addict, it can feel like really nobody is there for you except for the drugs, except for the other people that are using with you, because I know that's the point it got to me when I would call people and they didn't want to have anything to do with me, or I would check myself into a rehab. Literally, my using friends would give me a ride to the rehab because that's how bad they knew I was. I sobered up and detoxed in my dealer's house because he knew how bad I was. I had another dealer willing to give me, he bought me a ticket to, from where I was staying all the way back to my hometown, and all we had to do was secure a ride from the train station to a rehab, any rehab. But nobody that knew me that we called wanted to be involved with that. Let's call that like a transfer. You're transferring me from the train to the rehab. So that's just the point that it took me to. And during these times, I felt like, okay, you would think that a dealer wouldn't help you get clean, right? But they did. And you would think a dealer wouldn't help me get, buy me a ticket to get over to halfway across the country, because that costs money, and what's he getting out of it? But he did. Something I would hear a lot, both when I got clean, when I came out of rehab, and also when I was still using, was just well-meaning people would tell me, just don't use. Just don't use. That's it. Just don't use. And I'm like, this motherfucker, do they even know? Like, do they even know what? They don't. They have no clue. They don't even understand at all. That's how I would feel, because as an addict, it's hard to describe to somebody that's not an addict, but I'm going to give it my best shot here. So, if somebody had a disease and they were dying from it, would you publicly ridicule them and try to make them feel this small every time they basically were, I don't know how to describe this. What I'm trying to make with that is, whether you consider it a disease or not, it's lethal, it's deadly, it basically kills you from the inside out, okay? And the tricky part about addiction is, and what people don't understand, that tell you just don't use, just don't use. That's like, that's like oversimplifying the fact. Addiction is something, like, it's something that I will always battle, and no matter how long I'm clean, I will always have that voice inside me that I have to quiet down, that's telling me, it's basically lying to me all the time, telling me, well, you've been clean 6 years. You could probably have a drink, and I don't think you'd be out of control anymore. You have a good amount of clean time under your belt. You know, you can go to the wedding and not drink. You can go help another addict. You can go in their apartment and take all the drugs out and help them get clean and not use those drugs. You can the lies. It's like your inner voice from hell, you know? As you're getting worse and worse and worse, and everybody from the outside looking in can see this is not good. This person has a severe problem. But you, the person that are struggling with it, I'm talking only from my point of view, what it felt like for me. But from my point of view, here I am sitting with this, and say, for instance, I could rattle off forever all the different things that I've gotten arrested for, that just those alone would point to, I should probably not drink when I get out. I should probably not use when I get out, right? But yet every time I got out, that voice is saying, how are we gonna do this better? How are we not gonna get caught? Okay, you can do this. You're smarter than this. You're better than this. You are not gonna end up locked back up. You are not gonna stop when the police pull you over next time. You're not gonna trust anybody. You're gonna make sure that nobody has enough on you to put you away. You're going to be smarter. You're going to deal with less people. You're going to buy larger quantities so that you have less transactions overall. You know, this voice will just keep telling you why it's okay. You don't have a problem. We have a way to work around this. We have a solution. There's things we haven't tried, right? So I have two choices. I can either quit drugs because I think that's what everybody's telling me I have a problem. That seems like the logical thing to do, right? Is just to quit the drugs. And the other solution is, it's like I have this partner in crime that's feeding me all these ideas of like, wait a second, I don't need to quit. I have this, like, I've got this. I don't have to quit. I'm not a quitter, you know? I've never quit. I'm not a quitter. I'm not gonna quit. I don't need to quit. I don't have a problem. The only problem I have is I keep getting caught, you know? So just, it's hard. It's really, really hard to explain. And I know from an outside point of view looking in, you're probably like, what? Like, why would you keep using? It makes no sense, right? You've lost everything. You have nothing. You're more attached to a physical object, a needle, than you are any person. I'm willing to do anything by any means necessary to get my drugs, and I care about that more than I care about any person, whether it's my own mother, anybody. I care more about that than I care about any person. Yet I still have that voice inside that tells me, you do not have a fucking problem. You don't have a problem. You've got this under control. There's other ways we can handle this, and we do not have to quit. We do not have to quit. Not today. And that's another thing. Another lie is that voice would say, okay, you know, if you really, really feel like you need to quit, okay, yeah. we'll quit tomorrow, right? I'm not gonna quit today. I've got shit to do today, but I'll quit tomorrow when the shit runs out. Then I acquire more shit, and I'm gonna quit the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And it goes on and on and on and on, and it's such a vicious cycle. The point is, from an outsider looking in, all you see is this crazed lunatic talking to themselves, hallucinating, going 1,000 miles a minute, making no sense, possibly disappearing out in the desert for days on end, possibly going into possibly ending up back in another psychosis where I basically become homicidal. From an outsider looking in, you're seeing all this and thinking, that person is fucked up, right? They need help. That person needs help. And it's easier to point to them and judge them and call them names and basically like sit on your high horse and look down on them and tell them, just don't use. But it's not exactly that simple to an addict. And I know not using is a first step in the right direction. But if you're just not using and you're not doing anything else, that not using isn't going to last. At least it didn't for me. I had to start figuring out why I used and going down that rabbit hole, figuring out why did I feel empty inside? Why did I have this insatiable appetite for more, especially drugs and alcohol? I wanted more. Why? Why did I have that from a young age? Why did I always want more? And I guess another thing I want to touch on is just how important it is for me, when I was struggling, when I was at some of my lowest points, the most impactful things were sometimes the most simplest of actions. When I had nothing, a Salvation Army truck pulls up. I'm just walking the street because I couldn't get into a shelter for the night. I'm just trying with everything in me, I'm just gritting my teeth, trying to stay sober until the next day, freezing my ass off in the dead of winter, nowhere to go, shelter's full, and what pulls up is the Salvation Army truck, and some person just with a heart of gold just steps out, hands me a bowl of soup, gives me a blanket, and says, "Here, I just wanted you to have this." That in that time, in that moment, that meant so much to me, because that signified hope. That signified that somebody else out there gave a fuck about me. And I was, at the time, I was nothing. I was nobody. I was just a shell of a person, just trying with everything in me just to get a few days clean. And the simplest of actions like that, when you're an addict and you go for so long being this really repulsive human being, doing some of the most horrific things to get drug money, to feed your addiction, and you know what a bad person you are, or you feel it. For me, I felt it. I just felt that. I felt that it was like you do. It was like, for me, I did so many things. I did so many things for so long that I couldn't even keep track of them all. But the way I kept track was those feelings that didn't go away. I constantly felt like it was like the longer I went, the worse I felt, and rightfully so, because I'm living wrong. I'm doing all this, committing all these crimes to feed my habit, and it starts adding up. And you get to the point where I hated myself. I hated everything I was doing, and I hated myself. And I hated more than anything the fact that I couldn't seem to figure out what to do, how to stop. I couldn't seem to be able to figure out where to go for help, what to do. And it felt like everybody was judging me and picking me apart and telling me, you know, why I'm this piece of shit, in which I don't need validation on that. I already know in my heart how bad I feel about myself. But in the those little moments sprinkled throughout were like moments of hope and great inspiration of, you know, like you just, after a while you start to think that you are not gonna make it and nobody's gonna care and nobody's gonna come looking for you, so you might as well just go all out, go out with a bang. And I guess I just want to say, if you know somebody that's still struggling, what I found to be the most helpful for me in those times was somebody just reaching out, meeting me where I was at. And they weren't like up here talking down to me, telling me why I need to do this, I need to do that, I should have done this, why did I do that? They weren't like looking down on me like, this is what a good person looks like. This is what you should be. You need to be like I am. It wasn't like that. Whenever I found help and I truly was able to receive it, what they did was they, no matter where they were, say, I'm here. They met me where I was at, and that was so powerful. And they came from a place of compassion and love, and that can go so far. Even if it's just somebody that you know, you love, you care about, they're struggling. Even if, because you can't help, like you can't save somebody that doesn't want to be saved. You can't go inside somebody's heart and give them a change of heart. But what you can do is you can make an impact with your heart and loving people where they're at versus just judging them from the outside, because that's something that I don't think I'll ever be able to be a judgmental person, because I know how hard it can be when you're at the very bottom and you have nothing and you're just scratching and clawing your way, and you're going nowhere, but yet you have that fight in you and you know that you can't quit, you can't give up. And I know what that feels like. And I wanted to make this video to make a point of how powerful it can be if you're just doing the slightest thing. If you do it from your heart and you do it with love and you do it with compassion and empathy versus a place of harsh judgment and tearing somebody down and picking them apart for what they've done and talking bad about them and everything like that. It can make all the difference. It really can make all the difference. I had relatives, my own brother was a great example. He would, and my sister too, when I called, they would listen to me and they would talk to me, and they weren't talking to me like in a way of like, you know, you're just so fucked up, like you're never gonna get any better, you need to quit and you need to quit now. It was more like just an open conversation. They're listening to me, they're telling me that they're listening to me, you know, they're letting me know that they love me. My brother would offer to come pick me up when I was in areas that were not the greatest. He would offer to come out and pick me up and take me somewhere else. And for the longest time, I would call him and say like, yeah, I'm ready to quit. I'm ready for you to come get me. And then I would back out, I would back out because I had that voice in me telling me, no, you don't need to quit. You're really not that bad. You'll be able to get through this. Like, you can figure this out. You're smarter than this. You haven't tried this yet. Why don't we do this first? And if that doesn't work out, we can always call him back, and then I would back out on him, and you know, and he had every right to be like, cuss me out for that, or tell me that, you know, he wasn't going to answer his phone when I called again because I just kept backing out. But he didn't. He didn't. And when I called and I really was really ready, I had nothing else in me. I found a ride with a random stranger, and I made it to a hospital. This person dropped me off at a hospital, and that person called my brother and also my mom and got in contact with both of them. My brother still came. He still came. He still came. He gave me a ride to the rehab, and he helped me. And that's that still gets me emotional when I talk about it, because I did so much. You guys, I did so many things that, if you think back on it, like, I did so many things to hurt my own family, to hurt my immediate family, to hurt my parents. And actually, it's really hard even to think about all of the things that I did to hurt people that truly loved me. But one of the huge things that helps is knowing that somewhere out there is an option, and there's an option of somebody that, you know, cares enough to talk to you like a human when you feel nothing but human. You feel like a monster. You feel like a wild animal that can't be tamed, kind of like a jungle animal. You feel like a monster. And when somebody talks to you and treats you like a human in that condition, that is something that can't be unfelt. It can't be forgotten. It's something that sticks with you. And so even out there, an addict that's still in their active addiction, if you come at them like that, they will feel that. You know what I mean? They will feel that on some level. And I wanted to put this message out there because I think it's easier to talk shit about people and to talk down to them, and, you know, say what you think they should do, what would be the best thing for them to do. But sometimes, you know, people don't necessarily need you to solve their problems, but they need you to reach a hand out and lend an ear, give them offer a warm meal, offer a hug. These things to somebody that is in early recovery or the end of their addiction, these things can truly mean the world to somebody. So I think I'm gonna this was kind of emotional. I'm not like, definitely wouldn't say I'm a crier, but when I talk about some of my past memories, I do get a little emotional, because it's like I feel so grateful for everything I have, every opportunity that I now have, every relationship that I have now, everything. I just feel an overwhelming amount of gratitude for everything I have in my life, the good, bad, and the ugly, because I know where I thought I was going to end up, and just the fact that I'm not in prison and I'm not dead and I'm not locked in a psych ward is like it's like mind-blowing in the best way, and it's like mind-blowing in the best way possible. So anyway, I didn't want to make a video this week. I've been struggling with redoing my bathroom. I've been kind of stressed out with my business. Things haven't really been going super smooth for me, but I committed to making a video a week, and I do want to honor that to the best of my ability. Obviously, if I get sick or something crazy, yeah, I give myself grace there, but just not feeling like doing it, I'm still going to go ahead and show up. So I hope this video wasn't too horribly dramatic or pointless, and I hope somebody else out there was able to, you know, I hope I was able to connect with somebody out there. And until next time, stay strong, stay grateful, stay positive. I'll catch you in the next one.